many classes as I can, because they generally ask slightly different questions. So feel free to go in the slides and see those, to see those ones worked out. Eventually, I will post this into Schoology. It has work shown for all the problems on the test. So you can use that to study and prepare for your ACT Aspire. I didn't want to post it too soon because then you would just copy that instead of like working through the ones you don't know. Sorry, there's a thought. Alright. So this one was requested, number 29. Molly built a dollhouse that is a scale model of her home. The floor plan for the bottom floor of the dollhouse is shown below with measurements in inches. The rooms and halls are represented by rectangles. What are the measurements in feet of the rooms and hall on the bottom floor of Molly's home that correspond to the measurements shown in the floor? So this is one of the reasons why I wanted you to have the test pulled up online. So that way you could see that this one, like you need to scroll down to get a little bit more information that you need. Scale models usually have a key that tells you 1 inch in the model represents 2.5 feet in the home. Okay, that's how their scale model is. So in order to figure out how many feet this should be, well, if 1 inch, and they might have it on a map like this, or they might just tell you in like the paragraph that they give you what the conversion is. But if this is in inches, how do I convert it to feet? We're multiplying by 2.5 because that's what the conversion is on the paper, if that makes sense. So normally, you know, there's not 1 inch is not 2.5 feet, but in this model it is. So 2.5 times 6 is 15. So that's why I'm going to drag and drop a 15 all the way up there if I use the can. There. And then same process for the rest of them. Take every single other measurement that they want to call for, times it by the scale factor, 2.5, and then go from there. What if they gave you like the actual feet and they want you to make it into the model? What would you do instead? You would divide by 2.5. So use like your critical thinking skills. Should the numbers be getting bigger or smaller based on what they're supposed to represent? And yeah, it'll always give you a key though. You just have to look for it. Some people just didn't scroll down. All right, questions on this one? All right, questions on others? Brianna? 31. Okay, so a container at a deli has exactly 5 pounds of cheese slices. Each cheese slice weighs exactly 2 ounces. How many total cheese slices are in the container? Enter your answer in the box below. So this is one of those things that I tried to show you. If you don't know this one conversion, then you really can't do the problem. So what would you need to know that they don't provide you in the problem? So what? And how many ounces are there in a pound? So you have to know that 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. Without knowing that, you wouldn't be able to do this problem. That's why in the slide, not the slides, but in Schoology, I have that conversion thingy that I'd like for you to have memorized if you don't already. Because then, of course, it makes it hard to do those problems if you don't know that bit. All right, so there it is. 1 pound, 16 ounces. All right, so knowing that, if I have 5 pounds of cheese, well, how many ounces is that? So what math would I need to do to figure out how many ounces that is? Multiply the 5 times 16. So there's 16 ounces per pound, so that means I have 80 ounces total. And then if each cheese slice weighs exactly 2 ounces and we want to figure out how many slices there are, what do I do now? Or there's 80 ounces total. We divide, which gives us a total of 40 slices. So you would just type in the number 40 and make sure, I don't know if they go back and give you parts to credit, like I don't know if it's auto graded, but type it in however they want you to type it in, like 40, they already put that, it's referencing cheese slices, you need to type that in the box again. Okay. Questions on this one? This one is 31. The number is right there. So questions on this one? Okay. Questions on others? Wrigley? 21. The just answers are in the Word document. All right, so now 21. On a given day, on a certain poultry farm, the relative frequencies of chickens, ducks, and geese that laid an egg or did not lay an egg are given in the table below. 2 of the relative frequencies are given by letters. So this one's like basically, can you read a table? If it can be determined, what is the sum of the values A and B in this table? So for these frequency tables, they always have a total column. And for relative frequencies, that total column should measure to 1. Okay, so we're saying that for of the chickens total that were there, A of them laid an egg, 0.33 of them did not lay an egg for a total of what? So what would A have to be in order to give it a total of 1? 0.67. All right, so yeah, these rows should add up to this total column for that row. Sometimes they have a total column down here, and then these should have a total too. But this one doesn't, so don't even worry about that. So second one makes sense, 0.45 plus 0.55 is equal to 1. Last one, 0.48 plus B equals 1. What must the B be? What'd you say? Okay, that does equal 1. And then it says, what is the sum of the values A and B? So A we said is 0.67. B we said is 0.52. What does sum mean? Like add them. And when we add them, we get 1.9. If I remember correctly, doesn't that sound right? But yeah. Questions on this one? All right, so that total column is the one that tells you how to figure out what A and B could be. All right. Others on the practice test? Brian, 22. Okay, the volume V of a right cylinder or a right circular cylinder may be calculated using this formula where pi is approximately 3.14, r is the radius, h is the height. In the right circular cylinder shown below, the radius and height are labeled in inches. Which of the following numbers is closest to the cylinder's volume in cubic inches? So it gives you the formula for this one. It wants you to use the approximation for pi, so use the 3.14 where the pi is. What is the radius? And this one, it is 3. If you don't remember what radius means, that refers to like circles. It's always like the middle to the edge of the circle, so that's your radius. Across the whole circle, going through the center, and I'm really bad at drawing, would be the diameter. Okay, so if they gave you the diameter, I would have to know that radius is half of that and vice versa. So V equals pi r squared, so we'll need to square that radius, and then times the height, which is what? 12. So yeah, this is where I say it's really nice if you have your own handheld calculator, and by the way, you can still check one out from the bookstore for free. And then turn it back in by the end of the year and you won't get charged for it. But because I would much rather type this in all at once, but these calculators are not the best, the one that's given to you on the test. So let's see if it gives me the right answer. I doubt it. Question? Yes. So I doubt it'll give me the right answer, but let's just see. So typing it in. Yeah, it doesn't. Like if I try typing it in all at once, it just doesn't. So that's where you have to really know your order of operations. Remember, parentheses means simplify inside the parentheses. Nothing we can do there. So really the first step in this problem is the exponents. So what is 3 squared? 9, and you can use your calculator for that. Always clear it first, but yeah, 3 squared is 9, you see. Bring down everything else. And now the only step that's left to do is multiply. So that you can type in and it will hopefully work. 3.14 times 9 times 12 is 339.12. Let's see what answer, because it said what answer is the closest in cubic inches. And let me just make sure they gave it to us in inches. Okay, great. Which one's closest? C. Was that the answer I said it was? Yeah. Okay, great. Questions on this one? Questions on others? Number 4. Okay. So Liam is making chocolate chip cookies. The recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar for every 3 cups of flour. Liam has only 2 cups of flour. So how much sugar should he use? So what I think would best work for this is a proportion. So if you don't remember what proportions are, they can be shown as like fractions, they can be shown in ratios, all that stuff. So if the recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of sugar for every, and I'll just not put it, I'll just put that for the all cups. So 1 cup of sugar for every 3 cups of flour. I'm gonna set up a proportion. Liam only has 2 cups of flour. Are we putting the value for the flour in the numerator or denominator? How did I set it up the first time? I put sugar in the numerator, flour in the denominator. So if they're telling me that Liam only has 2 cups of flour, I'm gonna put that over here. So that it lines up where I put the flour the first time. And then what we don't know is how much sugar he can use. So I'm gonna label that as X. All right, so if you set up a proportion, you can solve for the missing piece. The way you do that, I think your previous teachers might have called it the butterfly method. I don't really know. I never taught that in another grade. What you do is you cross multiply. So 3 times X. Cross multiply again. 1 times 2 is what? And so solve for the X, which is the amount of sugar we would need. Opposite of multiplying by 3 is put everything on one side. So the amount of sugar that I need is 2/3 of a cup. All right, so set up a proportion is like setting up 2 fractions equal to each other. Make sure, like, if I put sugar on the top, keep it on the top in the other fraction. If you like flip-flop them, then you would get the wrong answer. But even if I did it the other way, where I put flour on top and sugar on the bottom, I should still get the same answer, because I still get 2/3. Okay, so answer is that you should use, because this one you would need complete sentences. He should use 2/3 of a cup of sugar. For explaining why your answer is correct, you could say, the original recipe calls for this, blah, blah, blah. If I set up a proportion, and you can even put that in the text box, you could put 1/3 equal to X over 2, like that. Then you can solve for the amount of sugar he needs. And then I think that would be a perfect answer. Remember, they grade these essay questions harder than they do for more points, than they do for the rest of the test. So never leave these essay questions blank. If you have extra time at the end, go back and add more details, like an example, maybe describe your work. And then it should be good. So questions on this one? All right, let's see. Any others? All right, so remember, by the end of class, you're turning it in for points. I want you all to get full points on just doing the corrections. Any other ones that you couldn't figure out why that's the answer? What? The towers. This one or the one where you have to make the equation? Because there's a few that are like this. Good one?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's 14. This same information is given to you for a number of questions. So a map of Nelson County is laid out on a coordinate plane. The center of the county is at 0, 0. A cell phone tower is at 5, 4. And Esteban's house is at 10, -2. Each coordinate unit represents 1 mile. The tower signal range is 10 miles in all directions. So it says, how much land area to the nearest 10 square miles does the tower signal range cover? So any information that you need for this would be given to you in here, but then there's also another little bit that they expect you to just know. So if this tower's cell phone range goes 10 miles in all directions, so that's given to you right here, what shape does that create? A circle, because if it goes like 10 miles this way, 10 miles that way, 10 miles this way, whatever, it ends up making a circle, right? It wants the land area that it covers. Do you guys know off the top of your head how to find area of a circle? not length times width, because it really doesn't have a length or a width. So try again. Anyone? So then we should add that to the list of other areas they expect you to know. So they expect you to know how to find like area of rectangles, area of triangles. They all have different formulas. For area of a circle, it is pi r squared. And I just did that off the top of my head. Let me just double check myself. All right, yeah. Because it has a radius, it doesn't have a length or a width, doesn't have a base or a height. It has a radius, and then usually when it's something circular, it has something to do with pi. So think of it, pies are circular, and then radius is usually one of the two measurements they could give you. So if they gave you the diameter divided by 2, now that's your radius, and then you have to square it because it's square inches. All right, so back to the test. So that's something they expect you to know. If you look at your answer options, none of them have the pi in it, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't say 80 pi, 100 pi. So that means they probably use the approximation for pi, which is what? Okay, good. So put that in there. The radius is what? 10, because it goes 10 miles in all directions. So yeah, that's the radius. And then plug that into your calculator and solve. Make sure you do the exponents first. But these calculators aren't the best. So you probably want to do the exponent first. 10 squared is 100. 100 times 3.14 is 314. Notice it did say to the nearest 10 square miles. So where do they want you to round to? To the tens place, which is where this 1 is. If wherever you need to round to, underline it, look to the right. Since that's between 0 and 4, we stay, like that number we underlined stays the same. If it were 5 through 9, make sure you round up. So that's why C is the answer, because that one would stay a 1, it would not go up to 2. Questions on this one? Any others? Going once. Going 5. All right, if you're all finished with your corrections, you could go ahead and put it in the bin now. If you still kind of need to work on it a little bit more, so like 1029, do so. I want it regardless, so that way I can give you some points. And then I'll give it back to you Monday, and if you want to resubmit at that time, you can. All of this will be posted in Schoology, so you can refer to it for your studying purposes.